cold night. The night was cold, colder than the boy could ever remember. He sat under a broken street lamp, his knees pulled to his chest, holding on to the only blanket he owned. The blanket was old, torn and thin, but it was all he had. It was the only thing standing between him and the cruel bite of the winter air. The boy had no home, no family, no warm fire waiting for him. The streets were his shelter, and the stars above were his roof. The boy's stomach growled, but he ignored it. Hunger was a normal part of his life, something he had learned to live with. What mattered now was the cold. It was sharp, pressing against his skin, creeping into his bones. He pulled the blanket tighter around himself, hoping it would be enough. His eyes scanned the empty street, looking for any sign of danger. At night, the city was not safe. Sometimes cruel men wandered the alleys, looking for someone weaker than them. Sometimes other homeless people tried to steal what little he had, but tonight the streets were silent. Only the sound of the wind whistling between the buildings filled the air. As the boy tried to rest, he heard something strange. It was not the wind, nor the sound of footsteps. It was a faint groan, a sound of pain, soft but desperate. The boy's heart raced. He was used to ignoring things, for survival, but this sound pulled him. It was not like the angry shout of a drunk man, nor the cough of another beggar. It was something different, something fragile. He stood up, clutching his blanket tightly, and slowly moved toward the sound. Behind an old dumpster, in the shadow of the alley, he found it. At first, he thought it was a man, lying broken on the ground, but as his eyes adjusted, he froze. The figure was not human. Its skin glowed faintly, a pale silver-blue color, like moonlight made solid. Its eyes were closed, its chest rising and falling with shale. Low, uneven breaths, strange symbols glimmered faintly across its skin, fading and returning with each heartbeat. The boy's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything like it. An alien, lying helpless in the dirt. Fear gripped him. Every story he had ever heard about aliens came rushing into his mind. Monsters from the stars, destroyers of worlds, kidnappers of humans. He wanted to run, to hide, to pretend he had seen nothing, but the sound of the groan stopped him. It was weak, trembling like a dying animal. The boy stared down at the creature, his heart pounding. It was suffering, and he was the only one there to see it. The boy looked at his blanket. It was his only possession, the only shield he had from the cold. Without it, he would freeze. He knew it, but he also knew the alien would not survive the night without warmth. He bit his lip, torn between fear and compassion. The street had taught him to be selfish, to guard what little he had. But something inside him, something deeper, whispered that this was different, that kindness was stronger than fear. Slowly, the boy knelt beside the alien. The creature's skin was icy to the touch, colder than the winter air itself. Its body trembled weakly. The boy swallowed hard and with shaking hands spread his blanket over the alien. The old fabric covered its chest and shoulders, wrapping it in fragile warmth. The boy sat close, trying to share his own body heat. He whispered softly, though he did not know if the alien could understand. "You're not alone. I'm here." For a long time, he sat there, teeth chattering, his own body freezing. The blanket was gone from his shoulders, and the cold pierced deeper into him. But every time he thought of taking it back, he looked at the alien's face. The faint glow of its skin seemed steadier now, its breathing less ragged. The boy hugged his arms around himself, shivering, but a small flicker of pride warmed his heart. He had done the right thing. The night stretched on, endless and merciless. The boy leaned against the wall, his eyes heavy, but he refused to leave the creature. The city was silent, but in that silence something greater was happening. He did not know it, but his small act of kindness was about to echo across the stars. He closed his eyes, whispering again to the stranger, "Please, don't die." And as the stars shone above, the boy drifted into restless sleep, unaware that destiny was already watching him. The stranger's breath. The boy woke to the sound of his own shivering. His body felt heavy, his lips dry and his small hands numb from the night cold. He blinked slowly, remembering where he was, and his eyes moved to the figure under his blanket. The alien, still lying in the shadows, seemed different now. Its skin, which had glowed faintly the night before, pulsed softly with steady light, like a heartbeat. The strange marks across its body no longer flickered weakly. They glowed brighter, like patterns carved from stars. The boy leaned closer, his breath forming a mist in the air. He wanted to see if it was still alive. For a moment he thought it had died during the night, and fear twisted in his chest. But then he saw the rise and fall of its chest, slow but strong. The boy let out a small sigh, relief filling him. Then the alien's lips parted, and a strange sound escaped. It was not a groan this time, but words, soft, broken, and alien. The language was strange, filled with tones and echoes, as if more than one voice spoke at the same time. The boy froze, unsure if he should answer. The alien's eyes fluttered open, revealing a glow of pale silver light that seemed to pierce the dark alley. The boy stumbled back, fear in his heart. But those eyes did not hold anger or threat. They held weakness, gratitude, and something that looked almost like trust. The alien tried to move, its hand too, trembling as it reached toward the boy. Its fingers were long, with faint trails of light running through them like flowing rivers. It touched the edge of the blanket and whispered again. The boy could not understand the words, but he felt their meaning. He knew the alien was thanking him. The boy shook his head, clutching his thin shirt to fight the cold. "You don't need to thank me," he whispered, though he doubted the alien understood. "You looked like you were dying. I just couldn't leave you like that." The alien's breathing grew steadier, and the glow from its skin spread across the alley walls. For a moment, it looked like the stars themselves had come down to rest beside him. The boy's fear softened, replaced by curiosity. He had grown up hearing stories about aliens, stories of fear, war, and destruction. But this being did not look like a monster. It looked fragile, almost human in its suffering. Suddenly the alien coughed, and a shimmer of light left its mouth, scattering into the air like tiny glowing sparks. The boy gasped, watching them dance before fading into nothing. The alien's body trembled violently, and for a moment he thought it would die again. But then its chest rose sharply, and it drew in a deep breath. The sound was strong, filled with life. The boy's heart raced. He realized the alien was fighting back against whatever pain held it. He crawled closer, speaking softly. "You'll be fine. Just breathe. Just breathe." The alien turned its glowing eyes toward him, and for the first time it smiled, weak but real. The boy stared in shock. It was the first time in his life that anyone had ever looked at him like that. Not with pity, not with disgust, but with true respect. It was as if the alien saw him as something greater than a poor boy on the streets. The boy stayed beside the alien until the morning sun rose higher. Its golden light touched the rooftops, mixing with the silver glow of the creature. The world around them began to stir. The sound of car horns, footsteps, and voices filled the streets. But inside that alley, time felt different. It felt like he and the alien were alone in their own secret world. The alien spoke again, still weak but clearer than before. One word slipped from its lips that the boy understood. "Protector." The boy blinked in surprise, unsure if he had heard it right. Protector? Him? A boy who had nothing? Before he could ask, the alien's eyes slowly closed again, falling into deep sleep. But this time, the boy knew it was not dying. It was healing. He looked down at the blanket, now glowing faintly with the alien's light. Something told him that his life was no longer the same. This was not just an act of kindness in the dark. This was the beginning of something far greater. He sat back, shivering but proud, unaware that eyes far above the sky were already watching, unaware that his single act had sent a message across the stars. The morning shock. The boy woke again when a sharp ray of sunlight touched his face. His eyes blinked open, heavy with tiredness, his body sore from the cold ground. For a moment he thought the night had been a dream, a cruel trick of his hungry mind. But then he turned and saw the blanket lying across the empty space, glowing faintly. The alien was gone. The boy sat up quickly, his heart pounding. He looked left, then right, searching the alley. There were strange prints on the ground, not like human footsteps. They glowed faintly, as if the creature had left a trail of starlight where it had walked. The boy touched one of the glowing marks with his hand, and the light flickered like warm embers before fading. He pulled back his hand, confused and nervous. Did the alien left him behind? Or had something taken it? The city around him began to wake. Voices of workers, the sound of car horns, the shuffle of footsteps on the pavement. But for the boy, everything felt distant, like a buzzing far away. His mind was full of questions. Would the alien come back? Would anyone believe what he had seen? Or was he now alone again, with nothing but his old blanket that now carried a strange glow? He hugged the fabric close, feeling the warmth that lingered in it. It was different now, no longer just cloth. It was as if the blanket itself remembered what had happened. The boy whispered, "Where did you go?" As he stepped out of the alley, the world seemed strangely quiet. The usual noise of the city seemed softer, as if something greater was silencing it. Then he heard it, a deep, heavy hum in the air. It was not the sound of cars nor planes. It was a vibration that shook his chest. The boy looked up, and his mouth fell open. In the sky, shadows moved across the sunlight. At first he thought they were clouds, but then the shape became clear. Giant forms glided overhead, dark and sharp, blocking out the sun. Ships, not human ships. Their surfaces glowed with the same pale silver-blue light he had seen on the alien skin. The boy's knees trembled as he stared. The hum grew louder, the ground beneath him shaking with power. People on the street screamed. Cars stopped, men and women ran in panic. Some pointed at the sky, others fell to their knees in terror. Everyone believed the same thing. Earth was under attack. The boy's chest tightened as fear spread through the crowd, but inside him he felt something different, a strange calm, because he knew this was not a random attack. This was connected to the creature he had helped. The ships moved slowly, lowering themselves with silent power. The boy could see markings along their hulls, glowing like rivers of light. One by one they settled above the city, their presence so massive that everything around seemed small. The screams of the people grew louder, some crying, some praying. Soldiers and police rushed onto the streets, weapons raised, but even they looked powerless. The boy clutched his blanket tighter, his heart racing. He whispered, "You came back, didn't you?" Then, with a hiss like air being released, openings appeared on the ships. From them stepped figures, tall and armored, their bodies covered in glowing plates of silver. Their movements were sharp, disciplined, perfect. The boy counted them as they poured out in formation. 10, 20, 50, then more. Until the street seemed to tremble beneath the march of 200 alien warriors. The people screamed louder, some running, some frozen in place. The boy stood rooted to the ground, watching in awe and fear. The warriors spread across the street, forming rows of perfect order. Their weapons gleamed with strange light, unlike anything human eyes had seen. But instead of raising those weapons against the city, they did something no one expected. The front line of warriors stopped, then dropped to one knee. The sound echoed like thunder as their armor struck the ground. Row after row followed, 200 alien soldiers bowing as one. Their glowing eyes turned not to the buildings, not to the sky, not to the terrified crowd, but to him, the boy clutching the torn old blanket. The boy's mouth went dry, his heart hammering in his chest. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him, human and alien alike. The people whispered, pointing at him in disbelief. Why would an alien army bow to a homeless boy? The boy held the blanket close and took a shaky step back. He did not understand what, and it was happening, but deep inside he felt it. This was no attack, no invasion. This was something else, something greater, and as the last line of warriors bowed before him, the boy realized that his one act of kindness had changed the world forever. The arrival. The air was heavy with silence. The city that once roared with life now stood frozen, trapped between fear and wonder. The people did not know whether to run or kneel, whether to scream or stay still. 200 alien warriors bowed in perfect order, their armor glowing like starlight, their weapons lowered in respect, and all of them were looking at the boy. The boy's legs shook, his chest rose and fell as if he could not breathe. He held the old blanket tightly, unsure if he should run or stay. All eyes in the crowd turned toward him, whispers spreading like fire. Why him? Who is that boy? Why would they bow to a child? Then, the formation of warriors shifted. From the largest ship above, a new figure descended. Unlike the armored soldiers, this one wore robes that shimmered like liquid silver. Tall, graceful, yet strong, every step carried weight. Its presence silenced even the terrified screams of the humans around. The boy's heart raced. This was their leader. The alien leader walked with slow, deliberate steps until it stood before the boy. The 200 warriors bowed deeper, heads lowered, waiting. The leader's eyes glowed faintly, and its face was marked with patterns of light that shifted like constellations. It looked at the boy with a calm expression, neither threatening nor cruel. It raised its hand, and the entire army remained motionless. The boy wanted to run, but his feet refused to move. The leader bent down, lowering itself to the boy's height. For a moment, the boy stared into those glowing eyes, afraid of what he might see. But instead of anger or pity, he saw something else. Respect. The leader spoke, its voice deep, carrying an echo that shook the ground. The language was strange, but the boy somehow felt the meaning in his heart. It spoke a single word, the same one the dying alien had whispered to him. Protector. The crowd gasped. The soldiers around tightened their formation, pressing their fists to their chests in salute. The boy looked down at the glowing blanket in his arms, his mind spinning. He was just a poor child, a boy who had nothing. Yet here stood an army treating him like he was more than human. The alien leader reached out its hand slowly. The boy flinched, then hesitated. The hand hovered over the blanket, fingers tracing the fabric without touching. The old cloth glowed brighter, as if alive, as if the kindness of the night before was carved into it. The leader closed its eyes and its voice rang out once more. Life saved. Honor given. The boy did not understand the full meaning, but he felt it. The alien he had helped had survived, and this was their answer. They had come not to conquer, but to honor. His small act of giving away his blanket had reached across stars. Behind him, humans whispered in disbelief. Some shouted, calling it a trick. Some wept, saying it was a miracle. But none could deny what they saw. Aliens bowing before a homeless child. The leader then turned, raising its hand toward the army. The warriors rose as one, their armor shining in the sunlight, their weapons lifted to the sky. The sound echoed through the streets like thunder, a pledge, a promise. The boy's heart pounded. This was no invasion. This was a ceremony for him. But fear still lingered. Human soldiers pointed their guns at the aliens, shouting warnings. The people screamed again, afraid that a battle would break out. The boy looked from the humans to the aliens, his small body trembling. He realized he was standing in the middle of two worlds, and somehow both sides were waiting for his choice. The alien leader looked at him once more, then bowed its head deeply. The boy's eyes widened. This being, taller, stronger, older than him by centuries, was lowering itself before him. In that moment, he understood the truth. They did not see him as weak. They did not see him as poor. They saw the power of kindness, the power to give even when you had nothing, and to them, that was worth more than any weapon or treasure. The boy swallowed hard, his hands clutching the blanket. He whispered softly, almost to himself, I just didn't want you to die. The alien leader lifted its head, and a faint smile touched its glowing face. It placed its hand gently over the boy's heart, and for a moment, warmth spread through his body. The warriors behind slammed their fists to their armor in unison, the sound like a drumbeat of thunder. The boy gasped, realizing what this meant. This was not just respect. This was allegiance. 200 alien warriors now pledged themselves to him. The world around him blurred, the voices of the humans fading. All he could hear was the pounding of his own heart. The arrival of the aliens had not brought death. It had brought something far greater. The boy, once ignored, once forgotten, now stood at the center of history, and above them, more ships glimmered in the sky, waiting, watching, preparing to reveal even greater secrets. The bow of warriors, the sound of fists striking armor echoed through the streets. It was thunder, steady and powerful, rolling from 200 alien warriors as they stood in perfect formity. On. Every strike was a vow, every movement a promise, and all of it was directed toward one small boy clutching an old torn blanket. The humans on the street could not believe what they were seeing. Some stared in awe, their mouths open, others cried out in fear. Soldiers shouted orders, their rifles raised, but even their voices trembled. No training, no weapon, no war story could prepare them for this sight. An entire alien army bowing to a child of the streets. The boy's heart raced, his legs felt weak. He wanted to hide, to run, but something inside told him he could not. The aliens were not bowing to his strength, nor to his power. They were bowing to his kindness, and if he turned away now, that kindness would mean nothing. His hands shook as he held the glowing blanket tighter. He whispered, "Why me?" The alien leader turned back to him, its silver blue eyes glowing brighter in the daylight. It pointed at the boy's chest, then at the blanket, then at the sky. Its voice rose, deep and echoing, the language unknown but the meaning clear. "Protector," it said again, this time louder. The warriors behind repeated the word in one voice, the sound shaking the ground. "Protector." The boy stumbled back, nearly dropping the blanket. 200 glowing eyes locked on him, and he felt their power pressing on his shoulders. He was nobody, yet here they were, calling him something greater. Protector of what? Protector of whom? The alien leader lowered its head again, this time until its forehead touched the ground before the boy. The boy gasped, his eyes wide. The leader of an army, the commander of warriors, was bowing like a servant before him. Then, as if following an unspoken command, the 200 warriors lowered themselves as one. Their knees hit the ground, their helmets touched the stone, the street shook with the weight of their bodies. The humans around them fell silent. The soldiers who had been ready to fire slowly lowered their guns. The people who had been running stopped and stared. No one could explain it. No one could understand it, but everyone knew they were witnessing something that would never be forgotten. The boy's throat felt tight, his chest heavy. He had lived his whole life invisible, unseen, unwanted. No one had ever bowed to him. No one had ever even looked at him with respect. But now, beings from another world treated him as if he were a king. His eyes burned with tears, not of fear, but of something he had never felt before. Worth. The alien leader rose again, its voice calm but powerful. It gestured to the warriors, then to the boy. The meaning was clear. The army was his, not in chains, not as prisoners, but by choice. They were offering themselves to him. The boy shook his head in disbelief. "I'm just a boy. I have nothing," he whispered, though his voice was drowned out by the sound of armor shifting. The leader's gaze softened, and for the first time, the boy understood something. They did not see him as weak because of what he lacked. They saw him as strong because of what he gave. The blanket in his arms glowed brighter. The threads shimmered as if they had absorbed the alien's life. It was no longer just a piece of torn cloth. It was now a symbol, a banner of trust between two worlds. The crowd of humans slowly began to murmur. "Maybe they're not here to attack," one whispered. "Maybe they're here for him," said another, pointing at the boy. Others still trembled, unsure if this was a blessing or a curse. But one truth was clear. This boy had become the bridge between mankind and the stars. The boy lifted his head slowly, looking at the endless rows of warriors kneeling before him. He felt their faith pressing on him, and though he was afraid, a spark of courage flickered in his heart. For the first time in his life, he did not feel small, he felt chosen. The alien leader raised its hand, and the warriors struck too. Air armor again, the sound louder than before. It was not a threat, it was a song of loyalty. The boy clutched the blanket close and whispered, barely audible, I'll try." The leader bowed once more, and the crowd of humans gasped. This was no longer just an arrival, it was a declaration. The alien army had chosen its protector, and the world had no choice but to accept it. Above, the massive ships rumbled, as if more forces waited beyond. The boy looked to the sky, shivering. He realized this was only the beginning. The bow of warriors was not the end of the story. It was the first step in a journey that would change humanity forever. The reward of kindness. The boy stood frozen in the middle of the street. 200 alien warriors knelt before him, their armor glowing faintly in the morning sun. The leader bowed low, calling him protector, and the crowd of humans watched in silence. It was a moment too large for his small heart to hold. But it was only the beginning. A soft hum filled the air, a sound gentle but full of power. The boy turned his head and saw movement at the edge of the alien ranks. The warriors parted, their formation shifting, creating a path. From the shadows of the largest ship, a figure stepped forward. The boy gasped, his eyes widening. It was the alien he had saved, the same creature who had groaned in pain, who had shivered beneath his torn blanket. But now it was different. Its wounds were gone, its steps steady, its glowing skin radiant like living starlight. The faint symbols across its body shone brightly, forming shapes that looked like constellations. It no longer looked weak. It looked noble, powerful, alive. The alien walked with slow grace until it stood before the boy. The warriors lowered their heads even further as it passed. The humans stared in awe, whispering among themselves. Is that their king? No, it's something else. The boy's throat tightened as the alien stopped just a step away from him. For a moment, they only stared at each other. The boy remembered the cold night, the fear, the way he had almost walked away. And then the moment when he had laid his blanket over this very being, the alien raised its hand slowly and touched the edge of the glowing fabric. Its silver blue eyes softened, and in a voice clear and steady, it spoke. This time, the boy understood every word, though he could not explain how. You gave life when you had nothing. The boy's lips parted, but no sound came out. The alien's voice carried across the silent street. In our world, life is the highest gift, the greatest treasure. When one saves a life, they do not save a person. They save an entire line, a chain that stretches across stars. You saved me, child, and for that, my people give you their lives. The alien stepped back and spread its arms. The 200 warriors rose and struck their armor in unison. The sound was deafening, like thunder rolling through mountains. The humans in the crowd covered their ears, trembling. But the boy only clutched his blanket tighter. He could feel the truth in those words. This army was no longer his enemy. They were his guardians. The alien reached down, gently placing its hand on the boy's shoulder. Warmth spread through his body, chasing away the cold that had haunted him for years. For the first time in his life, he felt safe. The alien spoke again, its voice softer now. You are protector. Your kindness is stronger than any weapon. Your gift will not be forgotten. The boy blinked rapidly, his vision blurred by tears. No one had ever said words like that to him. He was always the boy with nothing, the one people ignored. But now he was something else, something more. He whispered shakily. I only had one blanket, and I gave it away. The alien smiled faintly. And because you gave what little you had, we give you all we are. The warriors moved, raising their weapons high in perfect unison. Light ran across their blades and armor, reflecting the sunlight until the entire street glowed. The humans gasped, shielding their eyes. Some fell to their knees, believing they were seeing gods. Others whispered in fear, unable to accept what they saw. The alien leader raised its hand, and silence returned. Then it turned toward the humans, speaking words that none of them understood, but the boy did, somehow, as if the blanket itself carried the meaning. We do not come as conquerors, we come as allies. The boy has shown us the truth of humanity. Compassion without strength is fragile, but compassion with courage can shake the stars. The crowd murmured louder. Some were afraid, others were hopeful, but all of them knew this was history being written in front of their eyes. The alien turned back to the boy, placing its forehead gently against his. For a brief moment, their lights and shadows merged. The boy's chest filled with warmth, his fear melted away. He no longer felt like a lost child. He felt like someone with purpose. As the warriors struck their armor again, the alien whispered one last time, From this day, you are one of us. The boy swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he clutched the glowing blanket. He realized his act of kindness had not only saved one life, it had given him something far greater than food, shelter, or safety. It had given him a place among the stars. And above, the massive ships rumbled again, as if the universe itself was waiting for what came next. The legacy of a blanket. The boy stood surrounded by warriors. 200 alien soldiers knelt in his name. Their armor shone like silver fire, their eyes fixed on him with loyalty, and beside him stood the alien he had saved, whole and strong, its voice still echoing in his heart. You are protector. The crowd of humans remained frozen. Some whispered prayers, some cried, others stared in silence. The human soldiers lowered their weapons, unsure of what to do. No war manuals had prepared them for this. No history books had told of a child with nothing commanding the respect of an alien army. The boy clutched his old blanket, now glowing faintly with the alien's light. It no longer looked ragged and torn. The threads shimmered as if stars had been woven into them. It had become a symbol, not of poverty, but of hope. The boy's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, "It was just a blanket." But deep inside, he knew it was more. The alien leader raised its hand to the sky. The ships above shifted, their shadows covering the city, and then, with a low hum, beams of light descended. Not weapons, but banners of energy that flowed like rivers of starlight. The warriors struck their armor again. The sound rolled like drums of destiny. The alien the boy had saved stepped forward and spoke, its voice carrying across the crowd. This boy gave when he had nothing. He shared warmth when he himself was cold. He saved life, and life returns to him 100-fold. The warriors echoed, their voices one, "Protector." The boy trembled as their eyes remained fixed on him. He had been invisible for so long, a shadow no one noticed, a child begging for scraps. But now, he was the center of a story that would outlive him. Every human in the crowd saw him differently, not as a poor boy, but as a bridge between worlds. The alien turned toward the humans, its silver-blue gaze burning bright. "Your kind has been judged harshly in the stars," it said. "Many call you destroyers. Many call you greedy. But this child has shown us your true heart." It pointed to the boy with glowing hands. "One act of kindness, one gift, one life shared, and for that, we will guard this world with our lives." The boy's chest tightened, his breath shaky. The warriors slammed their fists to their armor again. The humans gasped as the sound roared like thunder. But this time, it was not frightening. It was reassuring, powerful, protective. An army of 200 had pledged itself to one human child, and by extension, to all of humanity. The boy lifted the blanket high, his small arms trembling but steady. The glow spread brighter, casting light across the street. The people shielded their eyes, but through the light they saw something beautiful. A child holding a torn piece of cloth that had become a banner of peace. For a moment, the world was silent. No cars, no footsteps, no shouts, only the sound of hearts beating together. The boy realized something. This story was no longer his alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever been overlooked, everyone who had ever thought they had nothing, because even the smallest gift could change the fate of worlds. The alien leader bowed once more, its voice soft but steady. "This is the legacy of a blanket." The boy swallowed hard, tears running down his face. He was no longer just a homeless child. He was the one who had turned cloth into a crown and kindness into an army. The humans began to cheer, slowly at first, then louder. Some cried in relief, some laughed with joy. The boy lowered the blanket and held it close to his chest. He was still cold, still hungry, still small. But none of that mattered anymore, because now he knew he was not alone. He had 200 warriors, a world watching, and a future waiting. Above, the alien ships pulled higher into the sky, their glow stretching across the horizon. The warriors stood tall again, their formation sharp and endless, but every one of them still looked at the boy with respect, as if he was already more than human, as if he was already legend. The boy closed his eyes, wispy, staring into the light. "Thank you." And though he did not hear the words, he felt them. 1,000 voices across the stars whispering back, "Protector,